illa magas artes aeaeque carmina novit, inque caput liquidas arte recurvat aquas. Beautiful verses. Let's translate those first. So illa, we know it means in this context she knows, know it. Magas artes, magical arts. And Aeaean spells. I will get back to this word later. So the word carmina means normally means songs or poems. In this case, it means spells because we are talking about a witch. And the word Aeaean or Aeaea in Latin refers to a very famous dynasty of witches. So she knows the spells typical of witchcraft. This is what Ovid means by this word Aeaea, referring to a very famous dynasty of witches. Witches of Greek mythology, of course, not real witches. We're talking about Circe, and we're talking about Medea, so witches of the myth. Let's carry on. And she turns back, recurvat, liquid water, liquidas aquas, liquid water, in caput, into the source. So altogether, she knows the magical arts and the Aeaean spells, and she turns back with her arte, the liquid water into the source. So this power of being able to change the course of the river is something that in ancient Roman literature is very often given attributed to witches. Those are very interesting verses. So let's start with this first verse. Illa magas artes aeaeaque carmina novit. Now the repetition of the vowel A and the repetition of the vowel E is very important in this verse. When we have a repetition of a vowel, we call that an assonance. And what is the effect that this assonance creates in this verse? Well, the sound really imitates the casting of a spell, of the uttering of a magical formula. Let's say it once again. Illa magas artes aeaeaque carmina novit. It really seems like a witch casting a spell. Again, we have the adjective liquidas quite far from the noun it refers to, from the noun it agrees with, so liquidas aquas. This is again an hyperbaton, we know what it is, and this hyperbaton again gives the idea of the subversion of the natural order. So even the order of the word is unnatural, slightly unnatural in this verse. Good. Last two verses. Scit bene, quid gramen, quid torto concita rombo, licia, quid valeat virus amantis equae. Those are quite difficult verses. Let's translate them together. So, she knows well. Quid means what? I need to imagine that the verb valeat is repeated at the end of each sentence, after each quid. All those are indirect question. So, she knows well what gramen herb valeat can do or is able to do, meaning she knows well what kind of power can be taken from herbs. So we can imagine that this witch is used to using herbs as a magical ingredient in potions and spells. So she knows well what herbs can do. She knows well what a thread spun on the curved rhombus can do. Now, the rhombus is a magical tool that was used in the ancient world, and it was used to spin a thread, making a hissing sound. That object, the rhombus, was used in both magic and in religious rites sometimes. So that's the second element of this sentence. So she knows what the thread span on the rhombus can do. And the last part is she knows what the word virus that we use today with a different meaning in Latin means slime or fluid. So she knows what the fluid of a mare female horse, a mare in love, literally of a loving mare can do. So let's read the translation together now. She knows what herbs can do, what the spun thread on the rhombus can do, and what the fluid of a mare in heat, in love, in heat, can do. And of course, this is a description of the ingredients of the kind of magical rites and spells that this witch would be doing in her activity as a witch, let's say. Let's analyze these verses together. It's quite interesting to look at the enjambment here, rombo, licia. So the last word of this sentence, licia, meaning thread, is quite disconnected from the rest of the sentence. So I call it an enjambment because this word goes on the following verse. But there are quite a few things that are very interesting. So let's look at this. There is, of course, a repetition. Quid gramen, quid licia, quid virus. This is an anaphora again, a repetition of quid. But also there is what I call a crescendo, what we can call a crescendo. So a crescendo is when we have a list that goes from the smaller or less significant item to the most shocking, the most important item or element in the sentence. So in this case we have a list of magical devices, and we have the most common first, gramen, herbs, and then we move on to something more obscure, like the rhombus, this magical, mysterious, magical tool, and then we end up with the slime from an animal, which is something obscure and repulsive. So that's a crescendo, and this crescendo gives the idea of the different and progressively mysterious powers of this witch of Dipsas.